Okay, so welcome to Blue Collar Startup.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We are here with Jennifer Lawrence from SEAT, and you're going to tell us what the acronym SEAT stands for and what you guys do, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So SEAT stands for Social Enterprise and Training Center, and we work with young adults, primarily 18 to 24, from communities that are often underrepresented in all the economic growth in our region. And our goal is really, to connect young people who are looking to start their career with businesses who are looking for solutions to their current problems. It's been our mission for 7 years. People say, why social enterprise and training? Because the social enterprise is where we provide fee-for-service offerings, whether it's through our construction management. We have construction managers, and we provide general contracting services. We construct low-income affordable homes. We provided fee-for-service short-term labor to different for-profit companies. So we have really looked at how can we generate revenue to provide programs and serve young people in our communities.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the social enterprise part.
Okay.
A few years ago, I was like, it's like this concept, social enterprise is amorphous. I want a product. Like, we need a product to sell to make it make sense. And so over time, we ended up actually acquiring. We had a program donated to us where we are now making wood products. So we make the soap trays for Rad Soap, and we're selling cutting boards. We just relaunched the cutting boards, and they're online and in some local shops. So we're, young people are making products, learning about entrepreneurship, learning about manufacturing, and then it's also generating revenue to support programs.
And where do you do all that?
That is all. We have two 10,000 square feet buildings in Schenectady, but we do serve young people in Albany, Troy, and Amsterdam as well. And we bring them to Schenectady, or they get transportation to Schenectady.
I was actually lucky enough to go on a nice tour and actually meet some of the staff and students a few weeks ago, and it really is a beautiful setup and a wonderful training facility. They have everything, all kinds of drill presses and machines. It's great. Like there's everything there that you would need to teach somebody in order to jump into the trades.
That's interesting.
And
So
it's really cool.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking at your website and your team, and you look like you're absolutely huge. How many people do you have working for your organization?
I think we're at 28 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and hiring.
And hiring.
Gotta always say that right this time, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't just jump into 28 employees and, 10,000 square feet of warehouse space and things like that. So, tell us, how did this all start? How did this come to be?
Yeah, so I've been in workforce development for a long time. My background was in social work. I went back to school to get an MBA, and I basically, I was a job coach when I was younger. So I was in that space. I was asked by a large nonprofit in the area to start a career services division. So I, many years ago now, started that. And, I would drive to work, and I just felt like I needed to do something more. I just felt like it was good. It was great. I was working for a large company. I was a vice president, and it should have been good. But there was that entrepreneur part of me who knew there was more that we could do. So in 2015, we spun off and became a separate nonprofit organization. And we were very fortunately, I was able to take the programs that I created prior with me. So we took Youth Build Schenectady. We had an emergency medical technician training program. We then created new programs from there. We did a lot of energy efficiency training with NYSERDA. So all of those programs were able to come, and we started a separate nonprofit in 2015. So even though we were allowed to take programs and any funding that we had raised in our department, there's a lot of things we didn't have. So we started in a 2-family house with 7 employees. And those were, those are always special times. Those startup times where you put it all on the line, and but you have to do it, and you have to have that faith and that dream that it's going to happen. So, but yeah, that was how it all started out. Just saying, young people, 18 to 24, need opportunity. There's so much opportunity in our region, but they need people to connect them to it. They need people to invest in them over time. How can we do this different? How can we do more of this? And just saying, okay, we're going to put our stake in the ground and start this full time.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's that and you said it, and we've heard it a few times, on our other podcast, but that burning desire, that entrepreneurial spirit, and then that optimism where it's like you don't really think about
I love the optimism. It's my favorite part. I am such an optimist. Oh my god. Yeah.
You wouldn't do it if you knew all of the pitfalls, but it's been a great journey, and you do, it's been a great journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What so let's dig a little deeper into what you do or how you're serving your community.
Yeah.
So and I mean, you gave us a quick overview, but tell us, so someone, how do they find you?
Mm-hmm.
How do they find you? Right? How do they engage with you? If they're engaging with you, what is it, what are they doing, and what does that look like for the people in the community?
So it's interesting. I got into this work over 20 years ago, and what I learned right away is that a lot of young people, we have this idea that you graduate high school, you go to college, you get a career, but along the way, statewide, regardless of school, only less than 60% of people who graduate high school are ready for college level courses. So that's just across the state. So then you're looking at, okay, we have young people who aren't ready for college. We also have young people who are not, college isn't for them right now, maybe in their future, but it's just not, I was talking to a young man, he was, I just don't want to get into debt with tuition until I know what I want to do. And that's a pretty smart, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, I'm 18, I have to go. And then all of a sudden the debt starts racking up. So, so that person that we're working with either didn't finish high school because of many different reasons. We have young people who didn't finish high school because they were hands-on learners. They just sitting in classes for that long of a period of time didn't work for them. We have people who didn't finish high school because they had a major life event crisis that prevented them from finishing. We have people who didn't finish because of their learning style, and maybe high school wasn't the right learning style for them. So we have that, and then we have young people who did finish high school, but college just wasn't for them at the time. Maybe in the future, maybe a trade is better for them. So we're really looking at how do we connect with young people who really, especially now, especially where we're at now with COVID, have been so disconnected. Mm-hmm. They're in their home, they're in their friend's house, their world is pretty small. They don't know opportunity exists. I mean, so many times I hear young people who are 19, 20 when we interview them, or 21, saying, I didn't think there was any more opportunity for me in life. They didn't think there was anything more for them. So so that's our first goal, is figuring out how to find young people and connect with them. It is changing a little bit because so much with social media, so many more people are on social media. But really looking at grassroots ways to connect with young people, where they're at and in their neighborhoods. We've done a lot more neighborhood centric events like blocks, we're just trying to reach people where they're at. And then once, and then getting young people to come in the door and see, this is a place just for you. It's just for young people 18 to 24. It's to help you get grounded, get your feet on the ground, not feel bad about, we have some young people who did a few semesters of college and came in kind of feeling beat up. It's like, this is a place to say, hey, you have some great skills. Let's just redeploy them. So, and companies who are loving to hear about, so, if you have some college experience now and to drive,
sure.
Company, there's a lot of people who want them, but their self-esteem may have been taken away in that process.
Yeah.
So it's just really building them back up. Whether they're getting a high school diploma with us, you can work with us and finish high school, or you already have a diploma and are getting.
So you guys are working with local high schools as well, and engaging at that point?
We do. We have had a small program where if someone is at risk of leaving high school and we can catch it, we can actually work with the high school. We've had several young people graduate with their graduating class, come to us, finish with us, and then graduate with their class, which has been a huge success for us. The older, so we are 18 to 24, so then some of the older young people have already disengaged, so they're coming back. Our model is a 50-40-10 split, so 50% in the classroom, 40% hands-on learning to practice what you learned in the classroom, and then 10% leadership development. So if you're in high school equivalency classes with us, you're also doing things 40% of the week. You're not in classes all week. So that really works for people who need to move around and are learners.
Not be at a desk all day.
Yes.
Yeah. Two of my kids are like that, where they're in school all day, and it's not for them. But if you gave them something to learn and they're hands-on, like they learn very well that way. So it's interesting to see and how that goes.
I think it's how our brains work. A lot of us. Yeah.
That's amazing. And as far as the leadership training, because I mean that's pretty unique, especially for young folks. I mean, I never got that in high school. We kind of did in a roundabout way and observing others that are around us. But I feel like especially younger people are so impressionable.
Yes.
And depending upon what their surroundings are and who's in their life and who they have as role models, really impacts what they see and how they lead people.
Yes.
So how do you guys approach the leadership side of that?
One of the key ways that we approach it is we define leadership as taking responsibility for yourself, your family, your program, and community. So it's about, it's like, okay, how do you develop yourself so that you can be that leader in your community? The other piece is that all of our students have the ability to be an AmeriCorps member, which is a great benefit. One, as an AmeriCorps member, we provide tons of service in the community. So when there's community events, we're there doing the setup and breakdown. We're running registration tables with young people. We're doing park cleanups. We just finished last year a pretty large park renovation project. That's in addition to their training time with us. It's a lot of weekends and evenings. When they build 450 hours of community service, they actually earn an award that can be used towards college or trade school after us. So that gives them some money that they don't have to pay back to put, to put towards school, and it builds their resume. So then it's not just the training with us and the internship with us, it's all the different, volunteer experiences that they had. And that's one big piece of our leadership development. We do teach advocacy. We visit our state capitol with young people. We meet with elected officials. Many times after a program, students will say, wow, like our elected official knows us by name when we're walking down the street and see them. So really, empowering our young people to speak for themselves and that they have a voice and that they have agency. And we make business, they have them leave with business cards and learn about networking and how to, all of the art of small talk, which is never easy for any of us, you know? And so demystifying that for them and saying, hey, like no one starts out knowing how to do this. Like we've all had to figure these things out. Mm-hmm. So that's some of it.
So they come in, like coming through the program, and now did you say that you also do like services for hire? So you're able to do you? And I'm going to use all the wrong words.
That's good.
So are you like staffing? So like you have your people and you go in there or they go in there and they do. So tell us about how that works.
We can do that. Yeah. So when someone applies and is interested in coming into our services. One of the first things that we do is have an orientation that we call mental toughness. And I always say, we're not yelling at you, we're not boot camp, but it's the idea that all of us come into life with these false evaluations about reality, things that we believe about ourselves that are not true. So we talk about redefining success. Failure leads to success, right? And every day is a different topic. And the intention is to bring the group together and build them up. We do a lot of cohort-based models where we're bringing young people together in a group and they're going through training together. And then so then they're in training, they're in classes, they're doing hands-on learning. If you're in our youth build program, you're building affordable housing and earning your general equivalency diploma, your GED. If you're in our build up program, you could be in culinary or energy efficiency or cleaning technician. We have individual services. So so people have different pathways they can go on. And then a lot of times, sometimes there's young people for different reasons, and we're like, they're in between jobs, they need a second job. And so we do have fee-for-service work that when we get that, we can get someone a transitional job. They can stay with us longer. If we're like, okay, they just had a really serious life event, they may need more mentoring or coaching from us. We're able to do some transitional work that way.
And then when you say transitional, so are they transitioning out of your program and then just becoming an employee of that organization?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So we'll hire, so if someone, an example is someone needed a clean out. They would say, they called me, hey, we have a 2-week clean out job. Could you take it on? We'll do it. We'll write a contract with that company, take on that job, hire people short term. So there's the company doesn't have to put people on payroll for just 2 weeks. And then it provides more experience for that young person, gives that company, gets that project done for that company. We've done everything from like run valet and coat checks as fee for service to demolition and clean out work. It's been interesting things. We had to one time build, I think, like 1,600 frames for a certain project.
Like picture frames?
Like window frames.
Window frames, okay.
Yeah. So, especially as a startup, as you know, early on, you kind of say yes to everything.
Everything.
Never seen that.
You have money, you're going to pay me to do what now? Let me figure out how to do that.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
right? We're getting our bearings a little bit more, but yeah, we've done a lot of kind of interesting and cool fee for service projects. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
It must be neat for the students too, because they see so many different things that are out there and different career paths.
Absolutely.
You saying yes is giving them another experience that they might not have had.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key things is that a lot of times, all of us, right, we just don't know what's out there. So it's like you can only imagine, right, as far as much as exists. So it's like really just, there are so many careers that people don't know about, opportunities. There's a lot of great companies to work for. And I think once we start making those connections, it's fun to see someone come along.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So how do people that need window frames hear about you? Like, how does that, so help us connect those two dots, right? So what does that look like?
I think, it is word of mouth. I think, a lot of the work we do is grant. So we don't charge. So every young person who comes to us, they are not charged. This is grant funded. We write competitive grants to fund the work. We have corporate sponsorships, individual donations. So this is, when someone comes to us and says, hey, we have a project we think, seat may be good for Seat Center. We have a construction manager. We have other staff who'll go out, evaluate if the project is something our students and our team can take on. And then we do an estimate. So it's very similar, to a process that a for-profit would go through, which makes that's the social enterprise side of things.
Is the construction manager, is that someone that's on your staff all the time, or
Yes.
is that okay?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was like one of your trainees that's learning how to do that stuff. Or
This is he's been on staff with us for a long time, George Brower, and we just finished a house in Troy, 54 Fifth Ave. That's for sale. We build for different community organizations. We work with Habitat.
I was going to ask, will we get involved with Habitat at all?
We have a house in Schenectady with Habitat for Humanity that we're working on. Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the young people, so one key piece for our grant-funded work, which is kind of separate than our transitional jobs and social enterprise, is that for our youth build grant-funded work, that a student goes through all phases of the construction project. So they see demo, they're doing demo, they're doing framing, they're doing sheet. So they're learning and getting exposure to all of those phases down to the finished carpentry.
So when students finish, through going through your programs, it sounds like they are getting a lot of different experiences. Do a lot of them go on to complete like another trade school college program, or do most decide to join the workforce?
Some go on to trade school. I would say a lot of people need to work, like they're looking to work and then go back to school while working.
Gotcha.
So a lot of people are looking to join the workforce, and so we really like, and it works well for our students, that stackable credential model where you can get one credential, then go back and get another short-term credential and build.
Mm-hmm.
That works really well for them.
How about any, do any of them go on to start their own businesses, or?
We do have graduates, so we're almost at 500 graduates, which is hard to believe and exciting. But we do have graduates who did. One graduate that I stay in touch with owns an errand running company. We've hired him. A lot of our business partners have hired him in his company. It's an excellent resource. Everything from moving to deliveries to picking someone up from the airport, he'll really help different companies get their needs met. Yeah,
that's cool.
And there's a lot of companies out there right now. I mean, the talk all around the U.S. right now is the labor shortage.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think we should kind of jump into that. And I mean, if companies are looking to bring on already trained staff, and your students are looking to jump into the workforce and start earning a paycheck, how do those companies find you? What's the best way to reach out?
So you could reach out through our website. There's a part of our website just for employers, so if you're looking to connect with us, we can get your information that way. You could reach directly out to me. I think we're gonna get my get you my email and all that stuff up for people. So I think, but if companies are interested, there is a huge shortage, and we're getting a lot of calls. We're looking at some exciting initiatives to really help figure out how to meet these needs. But we have been considering how can we start working with international populations to fill some shortages that we're seeing. Pretty much all of our students are getting offers prior to finishing. I'm sure you're hearing this from other people as well. It's a good time for them. Even though it's very hard, it's challenging even for us. We're all seeing challenges. What's interesting and exciting is the innovation, and I see the innovation that companies are making to address those needs, and especially small businesses are really doing some really cool and innovative stuff that is really going to improve, I feel like, the business long term, attract people, keep people, retain them. So that's been cool to see.
Definitely shaking things up for everybody.
Yes.
I know us, we had to redesign our entire training program. We did my SSA, the SIM certification, which I believe you guys are going through now.
Yes.
And it's really changed the landscape. So that's great.
Yeah, that has been. It's interesting to hear you say that, like, you're changing your training program, because that the companies that I see that are being successful in this environment that we're in is the ones who are saying, okay, let's create a new entry level. Mm-hmm. Let's pull the jobs apart and see, can we create a new training program that gets people in earlier, quicker, ramps them up differently. It's interesting. We had a company reach out to us on a Wednesday, and they needed 50 people by Monday, and it was the right fit for our young people. It did not require prior experience, willing to train, willing to mentor, and we had 30 applications in their hands in 48 hours. So for me, what it showed is there are people who want to work and need to work, but it's like figuring out how to retool it to match where they're at and what they might need support-wise to move through. Yeah.
Never say no.
Yes.
It's fun. It is a funny thing though. Like I laugh all the time, and over the years, whether it was when I was doing consulting or as an employer and a leader in a company, and I'd always have people come to me and be like, oh, well, can we do this? And I'm like, listen, I've never met an entrepreneur that wouldn't say yes and then figure out how to do it after they said yes. So I think for anyone listening that is, considering going out or has gone out, I think the mistake that some people I've seen make is that they become so hyper-focused on what they do, and this is what they do, and then they're dying on the vine and aren't able to pay the electric bill. And it's like, hey, but there's all these things you could have said yes to. Even though it's not specifically what you want to do, like say yes until, you know.
I think COVID taught us that, you know, you have to be able to
Yeah.
adapt and pivot.
Yes.
Behavioral flexibility is
It's a nice term.
Yeah.
I called it the power of yes.
The power of yes.
Yeah, so I said in the startup phase, it was the power of yes. You just had to keep saying yes. And then there is a
Absolutely.
phase where you have to start saying no, but that's a few years out.
Yeah, I think
You'll
for
be there
sure.
before you know it.
Yeah, you start to figure out what
Yeah.
you're really good at, and where you
Yes.
excel, and you have the money and the wherewithal to be
Yes.
able to say no to something that might not be the best fit. But until you have that,
Yes.
it's say yes.
Yes, it
Absolutely.
took us a couple of years to get and now I'm like now we can some stuff we can say no to a little bit more, but it was the power of yes for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting? You got a group of students who are learning all these cool things in the classroom,
Yeah.
but on a higher level, and I'm sure they don't necessarily see it, and you know maybe some of your staff sees it, but they're seeing a walking example of what it's like to go out and start my own business.
That is true.
You know, and you're implementing the leadership training with them. I think that's great.
One of the things we believe in is hiring our graduates, right? So like if we believe in what we're doing,
Sure.
we'll hiring our own graduates. We have graduates on staff, and we just hired a graduate from year one of when we were a new business, and so when we moved into the building that you went into, Derek, we had to do all the renovations ourselves. So that first group of students, she's like, I remember scraping the floor and painting and, putting up walls like we did. And so it means something to her because even if the kitchen's left dirty, it's like it means something to her because she really, helped renovate that building. And so the investment, seeing it firsthand, now she goes, these students don't realize what we had to go through, to get here. And then seeing her, being invested in it and carrying that message to new students is pretty cool.
A sense of ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did a beautiful job with that building, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Came out great.
Well, nice job, team one, or crew
Yes,
one.
crew one, yeah. They would come in, weekends, volunteering, and really being committed. Like you're saying, like committed to that. They saw the vision too and the dream too, and we're committed to it. So it was a special group.
I think that's huge, and I know, and I'm pretty sure that you agree that, and I think that we've talked about it in the last year is that one of the things that you've recently done with retooling your vision, retooling your mission, your company values, but a lot of that was to help and the way that you did it, I know that you did it as a team process and involved your team to really get that buy-in.
Yeah.
And
it's, if you don't, and I just had this conversation with one of our younger managers the other day, and they were struggling out to figure out a process to get our equipment and materials out the door in the morning at a faster rate. And I said, well, have you thought about sitting them down and asking them for their input and for a list of what they need?
Yeah.
They give you that list, they have ownership of it, and guess what? They can't complain if they're missing something when they're out in the field because they made the list. And I think a light bulb went off, but that's kind of what we've done is we've asked for our staff's input. You have to have the right team around you, obviously, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But it really means something when you get that feedback from them and then they see it up on the wall and they're walking by it every day. There's a sense of pride.
Absolutely.
I know I've been driving my team nuts lately. In
Not
similar
you.
fashion, I know, not me. But it's really funny because I'll go in, I'm like, hey, and I describe to them what the goal or the objective is, and I give them almost no information, and I'm like, got it?
Nice.
And they're looking at me like, what? And like Kelly downstairs was laughing at me, and she's just like, you just gave me no information. I'm like, I know. I'm like, because I'm gonna expect you to tell me what you need from me in order to make this happen, and that you're gonna figure it out. Like I'm trying to get you guys to. You don't need me to hold your hand, and you're super smart. You're super capable. I trust you. Like, make it happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important. But it makes my team nuts, and I have to keep reinforcing that communication to them. Like, I think you can do it. You don't need me to tell you every step of the process. But
And you're building that trust with them.
Yeah.
They see that, and if they're the right staff member, the right employee, then they'll take to it.
Absolutely.
And if not, then coach and over communicate and re-coach and over communicate. And
Yes.
so what do you to kind of switch gears a little bit?
Yeah.
along the way, so 7 years you said,
Yes.
what do you think your biggest mistake along the way has been?
It's a great question. I don't tend to look, I try not to look at mistakes. I more look at it as like, okay, what am I gonna, like, how do I learn from this, right? So I think, well, I'll tell you, this is a new one, the one that I've been thinking about lately. Bigger is not always better.
Okay.
I think that sometimes we believe, and I've learned this through the hard, that like if we grow and we scale up, right? We're always talking about scaling, and if we scale up, our problems are going to be solved. We're going to have more capacity, or more funding, more resources, more capacity.
And more problems.
And more problems. But I think that, we prior to COVID opened, we had other satellite sites. I was happy we did it, because I know now that we can replicate and do it. But I also, after COVID, we now have brought all of our team into one building, and we're running out of our buildings in downtown Schenectady, which I also think is good. And what I've realized is, figuring out how, what size you want your business to be. And it doesn't have to be, we don't have to always scale up for impact. And so I think that's one. So I think I guess if I was saying a mistake, is thinking that we had to scale up, to have impact.
Okay.
And now really seeing the impact we're having, bringing everybody into one building, and especially after COVID, being able to have everyone together and building that team in a cohesive way. And then we'll get there. I'm not saying we won't work on scaling again, but I think resources just sometimes, yes, are more problems too.
Yeah. So what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, what I think I hear you saying is that you were telling yourself the story that you needed to be absolutely huge in order to have a real impact on the world around you.
Yes.
And what you've now figured out is that you're having an impact on the world around you, even though you're not that
correct
monster company that you were envisioning at that point in time.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yes, that's fair. And that, yes, that is fair. And that sometimes, taking on new contracts, a lot of times it's just more work and not necessarily making the impact that you're trying to make. It could distract.
Sure.
From it even. Yeah.
And that's when the power of no comes.
That's the no. See, I'm now in the power of no.
The power of no. I literally just listened to a podcast about the power of no the other day, and I was laughing because I was like, well, it really does depend on where you are on that path, if it's the power of yes or the power of no.
It really depends, yes.
And so you think, with that power of no, is it really, at this point now you're saying no to things that are not supporting the mission?
Correct. Or that, that are not supporting the mission, or that I'd like to do in a few years, but that right now with COVID, I feel like right now in COVID, whatever the business is, we're not rebuilding, we're building new.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what is that roadmap for the future going to be? And, really looking at some of our core elements of the business and making sure that they still align with where our environment is and where the future is. So yeah, I think it's deferring some of the cool stuff that I really want to do.
The cool stuff.
Oh, there's some cool things I want to do, but it'll come.
Yeah.
It'll come, right?
So the vision now, that you've had that realization. I mean, what is your vision now for the company over the next 5 to 10 years?
Wow, that's a great question. So my vision for the company, I think, goes with where my vision of social enterprise is I would love, this is back to the cool stuff I would love to do. I really do see us, I would like to see us we provide training. We do hands-on training that's real. It's not simulated, it's real. So if we're going to build a house, we're building a real house. If we're cleaning a real building. If we're doing culinary, we're, making, we're preparing food. But my vision is that we now do that in a retail or in a customer-based environment. So we're doing it in I would love to see a retail store that our students could work in and get those customer service skills in. And I think that is going to fit into where the needs are in the small business community, because we're seeing a lot more business owners who are looking for solutions, they're ready to be to retire, and there are not necessarily people coming behind them to take those businesses on. So I would love to see us generating, experience, hands-on experience for young people in a business setting, and then, having young people who are interested and ready to take on running and managing those kind of companies.
There's a lot of opportunity, and we've talked about this on other podcasts, and it's like, at some point, everybody needs a succession plan.
A succession plan, yeah.
And
the baby boomers right now are...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that generation is at that point of retirement, which leaves a huge opportunity for, the youth in this country to really step up if they want to get their hands dirty, work in the trades, be dedicated. It was Randy Rowe, and he was on last episode, and he started off as general manager, of Farrell Brothers, and next thing you know, he's buying the company from the son who was supposed to inherit it.
That's a great example.
And it just, pieces kind of fell into place, but he was there, he took the initiative, and he put himself in that position.
Yes.
And I think that's great because, and there's nothing like just throwing people into it and saying, here's what you need to learn: how to talk to people, how to interact with people, not just the tangible trade skills,
right?
And we see that a lot too these days, where there's zero customer service when it comes to getting a project done.
Yes.
So
that's exactly it. So I think that's the next step is like, how can we have real operating social enterprises, which are basically, small businesses that have a social mission, and that people are being, getting that customer service experience with the public. The public knows that it's a job, a workforce training program.
So they're a little more lenient.
I'm hoping.
Right.
That's my thought. Yeah,
they're a little
coming,
gentler.
And it's made me gentler because, you go out and there's some, you have mishaps, and I'm like, okay, well, they're, somebody who's probably in training or new, and we've had that everywhere we go. Recently, there's new people, and
Well, I mean, we've talked about it. It's amazing, and I agree with you. I know that I have definitely tried to be cognizant of the fact that we're just in a weird time, man. And there's just people are undertrained, they're new employees. I mean, we as a company have had a little bit of with a lot of new hires, a lot of young kids fresh out of college. Coming in and trying to do different things, and they haven't done it before. And I put, I do put a lot of pressure on our people to learn and come up quick and got it, I'm gonna but I do see it everywhere with just where it's whether it was stuff like at our farm and different, and it was just dealing with people, and I was like, all right, I can take some big breaths right now, and then I gotta have a chat with this guy softly, Whereas it's frustrating, but
exactly.
But you gotta.
I think the general public, the patience has grown very
because
of the past 2 years, and it's let's face it, if you're going to train somebody to do well and set them up for success, we've kind of taken the approach of, hey, it's a learning opportunity. Just don't do it again. When you start seeing the same behaviors over and over, then okay, we got to have a different conversation. But people are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And unfortunately, in retail and the general public, the customer service isn't the same as it was, years ago. But how are we going to get back to that point? Taking the time to explain, train, and let people make mistakes.
Yes.
So, kind of a side note. But you mentioned something earlier about you have mental toughness training for your people.
We do.
And I am a student of mental toughness. It fascinates me.
We need to borrow some of that over.
Right?
To come over when we do it.
And I would love to know. Can you just give me a minute of what that entails? What do you do to make people mentally tough?
Yeah. So it's 2 weeks long, and it starts with we have day one as a respect agreement. So it's really, one big thing is always we hear about is respect. They're not respecting me, I'm not being respected. So it's what does that mean? Defining respect and kind of setting the ground rules. We do strengths and weaknesses. We talk about your blind spots. So we do an exercise about the Johari window, which is it's your blind spot. So it's what other people know about you that you don't know about yourself. And how do you, right? And how do you shrink that? Because our goal, all of us, right? We want our blind spot to be as small as possible. We don't want a bunch of stuff that everyone else knows about us and we don't know. So we're talking about that. That's a concept. We're doing a day dedicated to fear, which is false evaluations about reality.
Okay.
In that, we talk about labeling. So like, how have you been labeled negatively, and then how do you like turn that around and like flip the script and have a positive label and like recreate your identity into what you want it to be. Reclaiming your education is a day. So that is you may have not necessarily been the best student, so now like you can be whatever you want to be. You can be that person that sits in the front of the class. Like, don't let prior experiences inform who you are moving forward. One of the activities I like is negative thought toss. So that's, you're kind of like getting rid of all the garbage that you have in your head. We talk about
head trash.
Head trash. That's a good one. Yeah.
Well, it's a Sandler thing. Luke,
yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's I learned that one at Sandler years ago.
Awesome.
Head trash.
Fastball. So that's a great, and you may have heard it, but that's the story about the pitcher who was always practicing his worst pitch. Okay. And the coach, long story short, the coach says, well, what's your best pitch? Well, it's the fastball. So why aren't you practicing that? Like, practice and get be the best at what you're good at. Don't try to, shore up your weaknesses, because we all know, like, we're never going to be top performers in our weaknesses. We're going to get them, we're going to moderate them and get by. Mm-hmm. And so, teaching that concept to young people, like, if you're not good in math, like, let's just get you to pass the test, but you don't have to be an accountant. Right.
And then a lot of negative self-talk ensues from those things, because they're trying to be good at something that they're never going to be good at.
Absolutely.
I actually hear my oldest all the time, and what's interesting, actually, and I wish Luke was here. So there's a thing that Sandler talks about called IR theory. And I've done that with my kids since they were little.
Nice.
And it's really about self-concept versus your roles, and but most people let their roles beat down their self-concept. So I performed poorly as a father, or I performed poorly as a employee, or whatever the role was. And then they're like, and because of that, I'm an awful human. Mm-hmm. And so it's just interesting that doing that stuff, and then having them kind of outline that, right?
Yes.
And like with my oldest daughter, I hear her every once in a while where she'll be like, I'm just math and different stuff. I'm just so bad at math. I'm an awful human. Yeah, you hear all the negative self-talk coming out. I'm like, all right, let's back up. You're a 10, first of all. 10 out of 10. You're an amazing human. You just suck at math. Like, no big deal. You're an amazing creative person. Go play guitar. Like, right. So it's interesting.
Right. And so it's helping because, a lot of times the young people we work with may have never had someone speak positively to them. It might have just been all the things, you're going to be like, you're just like your brother, just like your sister, college isn't for, being told that, you're never going to make it. Yeah. So it's taking all that and saying, hey, let's just put that in the garbage can where it belongs and awesome. Move forward. So that's a lot of mental toughness, but then it kind of flips as the days go on, and it kind of, relates to a story you were telling earlier where, like, I think it's like day 5, we give them a task and we don't give any directions besides the task. So then they have to complete this task and figure out what we mean. And they'll ask all day, like, well, can you explain that? Nope. I just repeat the original directions over again. And it sounds very simple. So they think it's going to take like an hour, and then usually it's like a whole day. Yep. And that really starts taking it from being instructor led to now they have to come up with the ideas. They have to come together as a group.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. I think building confidence in people, even just on that, and you just, it's just one little bit at a time, and you get them to do that one thing, and they're like, oh, I can do that, and then another thing, and another thing, and another thing, and the next thing you know, they're, running the show, so to speak. So.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Did you design that whole program yourself?
That was yes, just from years of doing different group activities and like what worked, what didn't. So just pulling from a lot of different sources and saying, okay, this worked. And then the debriefing. I think the debriefing is such an important part of it, because like they may not have any idea why we're doing the activity, and then at the end that debriefing brings it all together. And so that's really like that key lesson moment of like the takeaway. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for elaborating on the mental toughness.
Yes.
Really cool stuff. So going back to what we're actually supposed to be talking about. Although I guess that still qualifies.
It fits.
It fits, right? Yeah. So, kind of getting into some of the more like just as a business owner stuff. Any crazy morning routines? Any
Crazy.
or maybe not crazy, but any morning routine?
Like I want to. Reading. I really during COVID. I always felt like there were things that all of us as humans probably always said we were going to do in life prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And my philosophy was, if I don't do it now, man, I'm never going to do it. Like, you're home on pause. If that isn't the time to start a new habit,
Mm-hmm.
it's never happening. So one of them is, I can't say that it's every morning anymore, but I am really trying to commit to reading in the morning and centering myself, because the days are completely bananas and hectic.
Yeah.
And if you hit, I used to hit the ground in the morning, right on email, wake literally like out of bed. Okay, let's check them. Let's start responding. And it's made a difference to save an hour or two, push that back a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and start the day really thinking about the team, thinking about the message of for the team. And then more recently, I started check-ins with the team in the morning, kind of back to my getting back to basics approach. So when I go in, team members are checking in, and it's been really great for communication, hearing about what's going right, what they would like to see fixed, knowing. It's actually been really exciting for all of us, even though I think at first they were like, why does she want to check in with us every day?
Mm-hmm.
But it's been really informative, and they're helping as a team. We're all building the business together because we're having constant communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you in the office at 5:30? Was it Randy Rowe that was in the office at 5:30 every morning?
I'm not a morning. I'm in at 8. I'm not a morning. If I had it my choice, I wouldn't talk to 10 a.m. But
Are you a coffee drinker?
I am a 1 cup in the morning coffee drinker. Black. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
All right. So 1 cup of coffee.
What do you typically read?
I read probably. I guess there probably is not a lot of leadership books, but one that really impacted me was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. That was pretty cool. I'm trying to think. So, it was a really good one. Just about time management, how we approach time, because I think that's the other thing that I thought during COVID. I thought I was going to get all of my projects caught up. I don't know how many people listening.
How'd that work out?
I thought that I always had this misnomer that if I just had 3 months, my whole life, I would get everything caught up and that would be it. Especially, as a startup, I was like, I just need 3 months. Well, 3 months, obviously, for all of us came and went. And the projects were just as long. And then I go, okay, this is me. I'm the problem. I've got to figure out how to manage this differently. I read a lot about trying to think about just the sheer quantity of what we do. There's some research around how many social connections we can maintain. There's only so many. And with social media, you think about how many social connections you now have because of these new platforms. But our brains and bodies are only wired to maintain a certain number. So we put so much pressure.
What's the number? Is it 50?
Interesting. 5, it goes in increments, 5, 10, 50, up to 1,500, people you could recognize and know. But your inner circle is 5. And then 50 is people that you might see throughout the year once or twice, But when you start to think about it and break it down by 365 days in a year, it makes sense. It doesn't leave a lot of time.
Did they talk about Pareto a lot in that book?
No.
80-20?
Yeah, the Pareto principle is the 80-20. So Pareto was an Italian philosopher back in I think it was maybe the 1500s or whatever it was. But there's a lot of time management stuff that comes from Pareto. The 80-20 is just one of the things.
Okay.
He's got a whole bunch of stuff that came from Pareto that talks about time management and about, one of the things with Pareto, and I forget what it's called, but when you really start to take, you look at the 24 hours you have in a day and they're like,
yes.
All right, well, let's take out 6 of them for sleep, even though we know it's probably 7 or 8 for some people. and then that leaves you with this many hours. And then you've got to brush your teeth and do the personal hygiene thing, so let's remove another hour. And then you start to do all this, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, I really only have like 7 hours a day to be productive and to do the things. And really.
I think we all put so much pressure on ourselves. Like there's this myth that we're supposed to do so much in a day or a year. And now I'm even looking at, a year, like we have to be thinking in multiple years. Yeah. Because a year is not enough time to, I used to have like this long list of goals and I'm like, okay, this is multi-year. So.
Chad, my business partner, he definitely is on me all the time about the things that I want to do. Cause I'm like, oh, we're world domination this year.
That's me.
The year after that, we're going to Mars. The year after that, we're at the whole solar system. You know what I mean? And it's just like, we're doing all this stuff. And he's like, I don't think that you can actually physically do all that stuff. So let's maybe bring the goals in the yearly. Like this was back in December when I put our yearly plan in front of him to review with him and get his thoughts on. And he was like, I think we need to back it up a little bit. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, I had that same conversation. We were doing our planning in October, November, and same thing. And I don't know, it just must be. And now I'm starting to realize that, and I think it's just the entrepreneur part of me is like, I want to. Same with you guys. Yeah. I want to accomplish all this stuff, but in reality, like it's good to have somebody to say, "Hey, like we need to set something that's a little bit reasonable." And I had our director of operations, so he was like, "Well, we might want to take another look at that." I said, "Well, why?" He explained it, and it made sense. Yeah. So we had to retool our goals, and now we have some more obtainable.
That's the optimist part, right? As the entrepreneurs, they're like, I can do this. I can do all this.
It's the grind part, right? It's like we'll just grind it out and do it, but there is only so many hours to do that. Grind out.
That's true. I can only have so many meetings in a day. And that's one of my struggles recently is like, as we're launching our, going up into Glens Falls, new product or whatever. And I'm like, all right, well, right now I'm managing my team. I'm our chief strategist. I'm also our chief salesperson up there right now because we're moving Brooke up into that market, but right now I'm the one that's leading that marketplace and I'm trying to set, 5 to 8 sales meetings in Glens Falls every week, plus do all the stuff I have down here, and it's just like, there's just not enough time.
Right.
Literally not enough time in the day. Can't do it. So prioritize and all the stuff.
Well, we'll have to have you back on for a content piece later on about time management.
Yes, it's work in progress.
Yeah.
I'm my own living example. I'm testing it out on myself.
Yeah, it's constant growth and development.
Yeah. So what, from a planning standpoint, do you do planning? Like, are you a big, quarterly, yearly? Like, what kind of planning do you do for the business?
Yeah, we definitely, I'm a visual person. So I love seeing like things on the walls. So we had one of our team members did, quarterly and broke it out by department. We filled the walls, and it does help when you start to break it down, back to like, okay, how many months and what does it take? But we just are finishing up. We did a strategic framework, we just finished up in 2021. So we're looking at setting another 3-year framework. So many, just so much is different in our environment and business conditions. So it's going to be exciting to look at that. And looking back, it's kind of cool. Like we did do what we set out to do. And I think that's it's really important to write down, to plan, to write it down, to communicate it, to get everybody on board, to just talk about communicate it over and over as that polar north. Because there's a lot of other, it does, if you I always say it's a lot of small incremental steps and then you do, get there.
That's it.
Yeah.
It really is a bunch of small steps.
It's very small, painful, often boring, mundane steps.
Yeah.
For that.
I think that's the tricky part too for business owners and entrepreneurs is the mundane.
Yes.
And just doing it anyway, even though it's just like, I know I struggle with it because I'm like, this sucks.
It really does.
I am bored with this. I don't want to do this anymore. Can someone else do this? Yes. And, but yeah, you got to kind of embrace it.
We acquired a small nonprofit right before COVID, and there's, so much legal and mundane, there's a lot of things. I mean, down to like, it was a nonprofit that gave away household goods to people in need. So if it was a crisis or a fire or domestic violence, you could help someone get started. And so was very motivated by the mission. I knew it would be a good experience for our young people to get community service hours and do this as part of their leadership development. But the steps to get there were so mundane, right? You know, down to we had to count every piece of donated product in the warehouse and like assign a value to it. And there's just so many pieces. And it took about 3 years to work through everything. We had to move the location, we had to build a new warehouse, like, you know, it was just a lot of stuff. And but today, we're helping the mom with 3 kids relocate into her first apartment after being in a shelter, and we're able to totally help furnish it and bring, you know, and help them start out. And I said, this is what it's all about.
So I was gonna say, sounds like a lot of impact right
This
there.
is what it's all about. All of those mundane moments, I can look back and say, you know what, they were worth it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I know we're coming to a close here. If you were going to tell our listeners one thing about, you know, whether it's owning and running a business or, you know, being successful in any industry, blue collar or not, what would you tell them?
Two things that I say. One is I say, keep your head in the clouds because the view from down below isn't too fun. So you kind of have to keep dreaming and staying optimistic. And the other thing is, you know, be faithful in the small things. Don't overlook the details, and the small things are what help you accomplish the big goals.
Perfect.
That's good advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And again, if people want to find you,
Yes.
or companies want to touch with,
Thank God for you, Derek.
If companies want to reach out and
Yes.
get involved with the organization, how do they go about doing that again?
Yeah, our website is www.seatcenter.org, and you can reach me at jlawrence, JLAWRENCE @seatcenter.org.
Awesome.
Okay. Social media?
Yes.
All the social
All the
medias?
social medias, yes.
Facebook,
Yes. You can find us on
Instagram.
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Yeah.
Have you employed TikTok yet for your social media presence?
Our students are ready to do that.
They are
And
ready
so
to
that
do
is
that.
going to be how that happens.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
I asked the question by laugh because it literally probably the most relevant social media channel right now is TikTok.
Yes.
And if you can figure out a way, it really is that's where all the attention is. All the attention has been pulled away from Facebook. It's been
so
pulled away
true.
from Instagram. Definitely pulled away from Twitter, unless it's about Elon and his takeover. And
Right.
all the attention's on TikTok. People are
Yeah.
spending hours and hours and hours on TikTok.
God bless them.
And I see people from all different industries
True.
employing it. Not,
It's true.
you know what I mean? It's not just 17-year-old kids
No,
dancing
it's true.
around. It's I've seen plumbers. I've seen, you know what I mean? There's people
I've seen
are-
real estate,
Yeah.
really clever people in real estate have some great, but it's, our students have come up, they are ready to take on TikTok.
Cool.
So we'll see
That's
what
my
happens.
homework for the weekend. I'm
That's
going to
your-
create a TikTok account.
Oh, don't do it. I did it. It's my job to know these things, I guess, right? So I probably 6 months ago, I got on TikTok and it sucked me in. And next thing you know, I am just mindlessly scrolling, watching all these videos, some of the funniest stuff on the internet, right? But then I finally, after a week, I was like, all right, this is basically crack and I need to get it off my phone. You know, social media is just awful from that standpoint. But
Yes, yeah,
so
true.
Well, thanks again for coming in, Jennifer.
Thank you.
yes, thanks so much.
Best of luck.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.